there's quite a few comments in the previous go-kart C5 Corvette video that are saying that we're trying to copy Leroy. Look at you, standing around again.
I'm talking to you. We were having a conversation and you just started recording.
What have you done, Eddie?
I broke it. I didn't break it.
What have you done?
Ooh, y'all heard that? Okay. Ain't got no motor.
And it ain't got no motor. The motor has fallen out. Eddie didn't do anything. It just, we came in, it was out. Grant pulled it out. No, I'm not kidding. I'm just kidding.
I pulled it out.
Eddie pulled it out. So check out the pretty trick dry sum. But maybe we'll see if we can fix this thing and get it back going for this video. This is right before Indy, which this won't be done before Indy. I don't know, I mean, maybe. I guess we could, let's get the motor. So we got to roll the engine into the engine room, which it's in the engine room. We just haven't really looked at it yet. But we're gonna go in there and look at it and see what we can do to repair it. So let's go take a look. Ricky's back here sitting in the Hawaii Nova.
Oh yeah, look at this fancy race tech.
We got him a Race Tech seat install going in. That's pretty snazzy. So we got to mount that before we can mount or start building the funny car cage. We want to double check that it clears all that. Eddie's all parts. Looks like he's got the engine in here and up on a dial indicator.
Zeroed right now.
Oh, did you already check it? Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm just showing you.
Oh, is it bad?
Showing these people. It's bad.
Is it bad?
It's real bad. So.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I don't know if that shows up well on video or not.
I mean, I kind of think it does.
You can hear it. Am I going the right way? What the heck?
There. Did you fix this thrust?
I fixed it. Oh, there we go. Let me get the camera. Oh yeah, I saw it on camera that time.
Yeah. She's bad.
That's not good.
No bueno.
So let's pop the cap off, I guess, and let's see if we can just roll a thrust in it. What do you think?
Sure.
Less than ideal.
Less than ideal.
But Grant told us to take this thing apart, see if we could band-aid it up, because he wants to build something different already, and this is just going to be the engine that gets run in the car, just for some shakedowns of the, I guess, the chassis, kind of proof of concept for the chassis, and just see how it runs. Hopefully it doesn't turn the thrust. I mean, we're not gonna put something in there that we know is gonna fail, but we're gonna try, I think, and just roll a thrust in it. And maybe we can do, I've got a little trick for the thrust. We'll try it, maybe a little pressurized oiler to the thrust bearing, but yeah, if that can work. There was some issues with this engine in piston to wall clearance anyway. Like, that's not ideal for road racing. Like, I don't know if you guys could hear it in the video when we fired it up, that she was a little growly, like a lot of growly, which some forged piston engines do that anyway, but the clearance was definitely excessive on the piston to wall. So if we can get this thing back patched up, so they can drive it around a little bit, check that all the programming is working, you know, get everything working, we'll start on another engine, or he'll buy another engine, or we'll build him another engine. We don't know. We're talking about building something, which would be kind of fun. So I guess let's see what happens when we pull the thrust out.
I'm sad.
Yeah, definitely a little sad to have it. It was a go-kart for an afternoon, and now it's a useless pile of parts again.
Yep.
Good job, Eddie.
It's your fault.
My fault.
Your fault.
You're the one that driving it.
You broke it. I'm blaming you.
For those of you LS guys, like, doesn't that just look weird with no oil pump in there?
There's no oil pump in it. That's the problem.
We found the problem. No oil pump. Because it's external. All right. We'll let you know what we figure out here in just a second. Well, as you could tell from the time lapse there, we've been having a discussion.
Yeah, a very intellectual, intelligent discussion.
And it's wounded beyond a bearing. So I sure can't imagine that it was that the clutch. I mean, I guess the clutch could knock it out that quick. But I mean, the thing literally ran for what, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Maybe 15 if you include the drive. Like,
yeah, total like it was 15 minutes.
Yeah. And with this being a 4/8 crankshaft and 4/8 rod setup, but a 350 piston that is overboard, we've got to figure out if we can get the balancing numbers from the guy that built it first, if he'll work with us on that, and we can maybe get another 4/8 crank and just drop a crank in it. Kind of got to talk that over with Grant and see what he wants to do. Be kind of a bummer if the thing went out there and did it again. I mean, he's got a Corvette that has the same clutch in it, same hydraulics, same. That's the 5.7, the C5, right?
No, this is a C6 Z06.
The C6.
So it's an LS7.
Okay. That's a dry sump motor too, right?
Yeah. Factory dry sump.
Anyways, we've got some figuring out to do. And it might be building a motor. So probably going to be a little bit of a break between this part of the video and the clip that's coming in about 10 seconds. So stay tuned to see what happens. All right, well, last night we were talking about, you know, the thrust and the clutch and all that other stuff, and weren't exactly sure what happened. Well, since we filmed that, we did some off-camera, you know, thinking about it, and Grant came down, which we kind of figured it out, we think, before Grant even got down here. But we're going to show you guys what we think the problem is, something that might make us look a little bad, but also something for you to look out for on your own project, which this is a pretty unique project, but, you know, we're going to talk about it. Okay, there's the spec one too. So what we think happened, and some of you geniuses that know everything can maybe help us out in the comments. I'm not being sarcastic at all there. So this is the throwout bearing assembly that came with the clutch. Grant, through his years of Corvettes and road racing stuff, and he's not a big fan of spec for endurance. So he had sent us a Tilton throwout bearing to use with his spec clutch. The specs for the Tilton throwout bearing, which we had looked up and ordered for a C5 transmission, and actually Grant just had this assembly right here. We didn't have the piece that actually bolted to the transmission. So we ordered up the piece, the whole everything that bolts to the transmission and gives us the ability to bolt the Tilton thrust bearing to C5 Corvette. It's probably C6 too, isn't it? C5,
yeah,
C6.
C5 and C6. They're a little different, but obviously we got the C5 one.
So in the description, what did it say? Works with stock clutch, aftermarket clutches?
Yeah, so it said like adjusted for Tilton clutches, but you can adjust the height for OEM clutches, other brands. So we're like, okay, cool.
So let's see if we can get the reflection to show. I'm not sure I can get it. Okay, there's kind of, yeah, you can kind of see the witness mark that is pushing all the way out here. So this is the bearing that came with the C5 clutch kit. And, which I guess I'm gonna just pop this out here. Initially, which, you know, this is totally flat and it's wide. And this is not. You can see it's radiused. So what we think knocked out the thrust is when we got to where it flattened out the fingers, and it's more a problem because of this tiny clutch. Like maybe with a standard clutch.
I think with like a stock clutch, because it's, you know, the pressure plate's so much bigger on a stock or stock style clutch.
It wouldn't be like basically doubling the load. So if you're pushing here, you know, it might only take, let's just say 10 PSI to push right here. 10 pounds of force. So then this is the pivot point here. So if you look at the distance where it was pushing when it flattened those out, it more than doubled the point, because I think if we measured from there to there and then there to there, it's maybe halfway in the middle. So effectively it would double the force needed to continue pushing these fingers down to release the clutch. So, something for you guys to look at on your own projects. If you're running a really tiny clutch, make sure that your throwout bearing has, you know, a radius on top of it and isn't a big wide flat thing. So I think this is the style that's in the Viper too. Tilton clutch that's in the Viper, but it's also a Tilton clutch basket and the whole thing.
It's all Tilton, right?
Yeah, and I don't think the fingers are as, I don't know, we'll have to look at it next time we get the Viper in. But, you know, we assumed that we were all good. Possibly weren't.
Yeah, I think it's just a bad mixture of parts that weren't meant to go together.
Yep.
You know?
Even though this said, you know, and if this were used on a stock type clutch, it probably wouldn't be a big problem, because I think the fingers are so long on a stock clutch that it really wouldn't have been any kind of problem. We don't have any stock clutches for this thing, do we? It's all fancy.
Yeah, all fancy stuff. And when you bolt this down, like right now the fingers are pointed up like that, but when you bolt this down, they flatten out even more. Yep. So it's even worse. It's like you're probably not getting that much engagement. Like there's no engagement on the outside until it reaches the inside. It's probably just all
it's almost flat.
Yeah.
So then instead of just pushing the inside here, we're pushing here, and that's just a lot more force.
Just pushing all the force into the...
Yeah, it's trying to shove this, you know, through the crankshaft, which is pushing the crankshaft forward. So, unfortunately, See, Eddie's pulling the motor down because we've got to get a crankshaft, which I have a crankshaft upstairs. We may use that one, or we may just buy a new crankshaft so that we can guarantee that it is perfect. And then we'll bolt this thing back together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sucks, but
yeah,
it is what it is. And it sucks because, like, when you think about, we already changed this and we already put a radius one in it.
Yeah.
And it took all of 3.5 seconds to change this, but it's going to take all that time and work to
so
fix the
interestingly
symptom.
enough, the bearing that, like, we've already swapped this since we discovered it, the bearing that's in the car, which is what Grant had as a, that he had brought us, like you can see this one is not just flat on the whole front, it's actually tapered. So he had brought us this bearing, but it didn't have the mounting pieces. So we were like, well, we'll just order a new kit and save your bearing that you brought us as a spare. So the C5 kit that we ordered had the completely flat bearing.
Yeah.
And it is what it is.
Yeah.
Fortunately,
I was like, well, it came with a flat one, so it came with the C5 kit, so I'm just going to use it. I didn't know if there's something special about it, so I was just like, well, it came with the C5 kit, so it must be for a C5. But it wasn't for that clutch. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, which I'm really curious to see what the Viper clutch looks like once we actually get it back. But thankfully, due to some very nice engineering, it came out pretty quick, right?
It did. It did. It came out pretty quick. I did a good job.
Good job.
No, it did come out pretty easy. We're gonna change a couple things, and I want to gold tape the firewall.
The whole thing?
The whole thing.
Oh no.
Yes.
The whole thing?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
The okay.
Whole thing. I know. I'd rather keep it
looks
black.
so good.
It does.
It looks so good.
It does. And what sucks is, like, I'm gonna have to take, I wanted to leave all this stuff on there, so
it'll be easy to take it off now.
But it's gonna be, I'm gonna have to take it all off and put them all back on. Oh.
You guys can see CJ's over there working on.
We got a new guy over there. We got a new guy. We hired a 15-year-old, an apprentice. Look at this guy. Straight out of middle school.
So one other thing I'm going to comment on here at the end of the video, and if you've already been, you may see in some of the comments, there's quite a few comments in the previous go-kart C5 Corvette video that are saying that we're trying to copy Leroy. We're not. And the interesting thing about that whole situation is Grant has owned this Corvette chassis for longer than Cletus has owned Leroy. That's a few years, if you think about all that. And I mean, this was actually one of the first cars when it was in a whole lot more stock form than what it is now. This is the car that I met Grant in. Like, he was out at one of the local road race things out at Gainesville Raceway. There's a little track out on the back of the property out there that there used to be some monthly road race meetups, time attack type deals. It's a good time. And that's actually where I met him. So that's going back
about 50 years.
Not 50, but
60?
15. The car's not that old, and neither am I.
I mean, when did you do those rear tubs? Like 10 years ago?
Yeah, the tubs were a long time ago.
Yeah, like.
And you can tell it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Long time ago, Kevin worked. So, for all of you that think we're copying Leroy, we're not. It's kind of funny. Actually, there's a hood for it right there. There's the hood. There's the windshield. The roof is out in the back. And if you look at some of the previous videos, the car has had a roof on it. And this car is being purpose-built for endurance road racing. And it's going to be really good at that. It's going to be really good at road racing. Yeah, it's kind of low power, but it's also being built specifically for a class. And for those of you that don't know, that's what it takes to go racing when you start going class racing. The more class type racing you get into, the deeper you get into that, the more specific the car build gets. That's why this thing is only 316 cubic inches, we figured out it was. So it's a 3.92 bore, which actually we could measure that We get that out of there. But then a 3.27 stroke on the crankshaft. So it's 315, 20 inches. We'll measure that in there in a second. And the goal is for 300 wheel horsepower. And that's also factored into the fuel quantity, because some people ask, well, why not just build a bigger engine and then just close the throttle body so that you can make 300 horsepower all the time? Well, Grant's a pretty smart guy. And when it comes to some of the engineering of road race stuff, you know, it's his car. For one, we're going to do what he wants us to do anyway. If he wanted us to build an exact duplicate to Leroy, we would have done that, and we probably would have done a video on it. But when it came to the road racing engineering, he said what he wanted to do, and we did that for him. So the power and the weight and the fuel quantity he felt like was the best match for this chassis. And so that's what we did. And there's actually going to be some, they're called, I think, displacement balls in the driver's side tank, because I think the factory fuel system is 17 gallons, but there's probably going to be a gallon or so in the filler neck, where we've modified the filler neck and the two vents, or the two fills that are going to go down to the tank. That's all larger than stock by a good bit. So we're going to have a gallon or two displacement in the fuel tank, which works out well because we can put the displacement balls over here, which makes this side of the car lighter, which makes this side more equal to the driver weight. It's all been thought about, and it's what it takes to build something kind of like this. So anyways, I'm going to stop yammering on. I'm in Eddie's workspace.
I know. Get out of here.
I'm in your way.
You are in my way.
Actually, you were taking the motor apart, so I kind of wasn't in the way.
Yeah, but you're still in my area. It makes me uncomfortable. Like, get out of here.
Okay. So anyways, that's the talk about the car. We're going to build it. We're going to go watch Grant have some fun with it. He did say that we could drive it when we take it out to the firm. Probably going to be a couple months by the time we get her back together. Because we've got to wait on our machine shop to balance the crankshaft. It is what it is. But in that time, we've got some other projects we'll finish on the car, or Eddie's going to finish, like the gold tape on the firewall, the filler neck we've got to finish, the vent system we've got to finish. The filler neck itself is actually finished, but we have to build an enclosure for it. And then I think beyond that, it's just like data and stuff.
Yeah. See this right here? This keeps me working. Celsius, please sponsor us.
I'm down with that. Celsius, reach out to us. Which is funny because I was at Drew's shop last weekend, and Corey LaJoy is sponsored by Celsius, and there's just a wall of pallets of Celsius. It was, Eddie would have been jealous.
Celsius makes your employees work harder. So that's why you business owners need to buy big coolers of Celsius for your employees so they work harder, because that's what I do for Kevin. So Celsius, please sponsor us.
All right, I'm gonna wrap it up on that. Appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. We'll see you guys next time.